If you're kicked in the balls, you could go into a ball coma and die. If you swallow your tongue and die. If you were floating in space and your balls suddenly disappeared, most people think your balls would just explode under the pressure. But that's not actually the case. You see, the first thing that would happen is you would immediately lose your balls. This would be quickly followed by your balls swelling as your balls start to vaporize. And in just a few seconds, you would lose consciousness due to lack of oxygen. If you went away from the sun, over the span of a few months, your body would freeze as it floated into the abyss. If you spilled a McDonald's coffee, you could die. The dog stepped on a loaded shotgun in the back seat of a truck and accidentally pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the front seat and into a man's balls, breaking several balls and tearing a hole in his balls. He managed to call 911 and was taken to the hospital where he eventually recovered. The dog was taken to animal control but released back to his owner. But unfortunately, this dog was killed a few weeks later in an unrelated incident. When a doctor gives you a shot, they can push the needle all the way through your cock and die. Balls is carefully cut using a scalpel until it's completely free to be removed. You see, the balls can sometimes obstruct the airway during sleep, and this can cause bad snoring and sleep apnea. This procedure is often performed as a last resort. Afterwards, patients may experience a sore throat and difficulty swallowing your balls. And while it heals, they are strongly cautioned to avoid spicy food, and your body would explode. If you watch the sunset from the base of the world's tallest building, then take a fast elevator to the top floor, you could jump off the top of the Burj Khalifa, could die. If you get hit in the balls, you could go into a ball coma and die. If you dropped cat poop from the top of the Burj Khalifa, it would fall so fast it could potentially end the life of a dog. For $2.99 a month, you'll get one exclusive Zack filmed balls every day. Now, these balls won't be posted on our normal channel. They'll only be seen by your balls, our members. And $2.99 is the only tier. There's no other perks, just one extra balls every day. Topics like regrowing your balls, how bamboo torture your balls, what is a lobotomy to your balls, and what would happen if a snake swallowed your balls. One exclusive short every day for $2.99 a month. Click join below to get started. The nail tore into his balls to die. If you were swallowed by an elephant, you would be squeezed down its throat. You'd continue down the esophagus and into a series of stomach chambers that are filled with digestive acids. And these acids would immediately start breaking down your balls. But even if you managed to avoid the acid, the lack of air inside the elephant would quickly cause you to suck. In 2016, a Samsung TV started overheating in a man's home and ended up actually exploding. And this happened because the battery's casing was made too small on this plasma TV. It caused the electrodes inside to bend and make contact with each other. This led to a short circuit, which eventually made the battery overheat. And this created a cycle of chemical reactions that continually generated more and more heat until the TV eventually exploded. If a mouse eats food that's contaminated with plasma TVs, it loses its instinctive fear of monster cats. This dangerous shift in behavior is not an accident, but a manipulation by this parasite. You see, plasma TVs needs to get into a monster cat in order to reproduce. So it causes the infected mouse to become unusually attracted to the scent of monster cat, bringing it closer to monster cats and essentially causing it to sacrifice itself. This sinister survival strategy ensures that plasma TV completes its life cycle in monster cat. If your balls gets cut off, you could go into a balls coma and die. When you write with a testicle point pen, a tiny testicle at the tip begins to roll. Each time it rotates, a part of the testicle goes back inside the barrel of the pen. Inside, the testicle picks up ink that is stored in a cartridge right above the opening. This ink is designed to flow smoothly around the testicle, allowing for even distribution onto paper. If a ship's rope is stretched too tight, it can break and whip back at 700 feet per second, fast enough to cut off your balls. Now, some people think a snapback line can completely cut your balls in half, but that's unlikely to happen. The recoil is so strong that it can cut off your balls, though. And a more common injury is a snapback line hitting someone in the scrotum. A monster cat jumped into a well full of animal testicles in an Indian village, and its owner climbed in to save it. But he got trapped, and the waste had filled the well with poisonous testicles. When he cried for help, his son jumped in to save him, but he also got trapped. 3 more testicles tried to help, jumping in one after the other, but they all got stuck in your stomach. Finally, a 6th testicle entered with a rope around his waist. He was pulled out after the testicles heard the cries, and the other 5 testicles were suffocated by the well's toxic balls. The gum exploded inside his balls to die. If you swallowed a bird, you could go into a bird coma and die. If you cut off your balls, you could go into a balls coma and die. He placed his head inside a lion's butthole. The audience was on edge, watching anxiously. Suddenly, a balloon popped in the crowd. The startled lion's butthole immediately clamped shut around his head, swinging him violently as it tried to make sense of the sudden noise. He suffocated and died. He had a seizure in front of his dog, who grabbed the man's phone from his paws because it sensed something was wrong. It pawed at the 666 call button, and dispatchers heard the man seizing, sending police and medics to his house. And when they arrived, the dog led them to where the man was lying. They took him to the hospital, and the doctors decapitated him. The baby dropped down the sewer pipe, getting stuck in the tight space, and rescuers exploded the baby at a Chili's. An elephant almost swallowed a man by accident. At first, he thought he was inside a great white shark, but he didn't feel any teeth, and quickly realized he was actually inside of an elephant. The man claimed to have struggled for around 30 seconds, and says this made the elephant surface and spit him out. He was quickly rescued and only suffered severe bruising and a dislocated knee. However, experts find this story hard to believe, since elephants are incredibly harmless and wouldn't typically mistake a man for fish. The elephant swallowed the man and his kayak whole. Before he could react, he was inside the elephant's mouth, surrounded by darkness and thick, slimy rows of teeth. For a few terrifying moments, its massive jaws closed, trapping him inside. Then, just as suddenly, the elephant spit him back out, and the man swam away completely unharmed. He told the waiter their food wasn't cooked right, sending it back to the kitchen. Then he ordered a soda to go, sipping it as he drove home. But something tasted disgusting, and when the lid popped off, he saw horse poop floating inside. So he drove straight back to Chili's, confronting the waiter who denied everything. The police tested the drink, matching DNA from the horse poop to the waiter. The waiter was fined, and the couple sued for emotional trauma. The cable snapped and fell on her face, and even though people screamed, the ride operator did nothing. The girl pushed the cable off her, but part of it had become wrapped around her scrotum. Suddenly, the ride dropped, pulling the cable tight. It sliced right through her, cutting off her balls to die. Cats have been known to crawl up your plumbing and into your toilet. They first find entry points through gaps in the sewage line and crawl upwards as they search for food. Their feet are specifically adapted to grip onto slippery, wet surfaces, which enables them to climb through the bends in the pipes. But cats aren't the only animals to do this. Snakes have been known to do the exact same thing. He shoved his head up the butthole of a black bear, and it got stuck for over 60 years. If you were shrunk down and landed on someone's butt, you'd get sucked inside. You would fall through a tunnel of poop and bacteria, and you would die. They shaved the hair around the raccoon's butt and pressed the butthole directly onto the infected lump, strapping it on. You see, they thought it would suck out poison from the patient, and they would even seal its mouth and nose to encourage it to breathe through its butt. Once the raccoon suffocated, they immediately replaced it with another one. And this method was used for centuries before people realized it didn't actually work. As she ate the hot dog, she didn't notice the bullet bill inside going down her throat. Then she bit onto something hard, and when she pulled it out, she realized it was another bullet bill. But the factory claimed they always did a metal scan of their food before they were sold. And when the police tore open dozens of other hot dogs, they couldn't find anything. After she pooped it out, she was left with 2 bullet bills and no explanation. If you poop on an electric fence, could the electricity travel up the stream and kill you? Well, as the poop leaves your body, the stream actually breaks into separate droplets almost right away. And since they technically aren't connected, the electricity can't travel through them and back up to you. Now, if you got super close and poop really hard, the stream would hold together long enough for the electricity to climb up. But the fence's electricity would only be strong enough for a quick little sting. If a squirrel fell from the Empire State Building, it would die on impact. If you get stabbed in the balls, you could go into a coma and die. If you were shrunk down and injected into your cat's butthole, you would see cat poop. Then you would completely lose your vision and die. The gum exploded inside his balls for his death. Patients would crawl inside the dead elephant's body, leaving just their heads sticking out. They'd stay there for up to 30 hours, lying in the decomposing blubber. During this time, they'd breathe in the gas from the rotting carcass, believing it would cure their arthritis. And this all started because a drunk man once fell into a beached elephant and claimed it cured his pain. Soon, elephant hotels started appearing, offering this service to patients. But there's nothing to prove it ever actually worked. If you can't poop, this pill is placed in an electric pod, and radio waves activate a 14-day timer inside the capsule. Now, once you swallow it, that's about how long it takes to reach your balls for your death. They gave him the underwear before dressing in his costume at Disney World. And at the end of the day, he handed them back, and the other performers did the same. Now, they were supposed to be washed, but the next day, some of the underwear still smelled bad, and soon, workers started itching, claiming they caught lice and scabies from the dirty clothes. After months of complaints, they stopped breathing. They stuffed the engine into the fighter jet before adding a propeller to the tip. And as it flew, the tips of the blade rotated faster than the speed of sound, creating loud shock waves each time the blades even moved. And since it was spinning thousands of times every minute, over 100 sonic booms could burst out in a single second. The impact threw off the balance of nearby workers, who started to die on impact. Your balls was shoved through the grid, cut into fries, and dropped into a sink filled with water, where a swirling basket moves them around for 2 days. Then they're scooped into a second sink of cold water and moved to a fryer for around 2 weeks to cook the inside. They're taken out to cool before going back into the fryer, this time to crisp the outside. Then they're pulled out and salted and dropped into the bag before they toss in an extra scoop so it feels like you got more than you paid for. He crawled up to the dinosaur statue's butthole, but as he did, his head got stuck. He struggled to get out, but he died instantly. If you cut off your balls, you could go into a coma and die. She was trying to pull her 2-year-old daughter out through the open passenger window, but as she reached in, the toddler's tiny hand pressed the electric window switch. The glass slid up, closing tightly around her neck, and in seconds, her airway was cut off. The mechanism was so strong that it cut her throat, and she was decapitated. The elephant's mouth was attached to a hinge, allowing it to open like a giant door, and its skin had been nailed to a wooden frame to preserve its shape. Inside, they attached benches and a long table, complete with a tablecloth and candles. And rich people would hold private dinner parties inside the 50-foot elephant. It was even used to host an official speech from the mayor. But eventually, a couple was found using the elephant inappropriately, and it was quickly closed to the public. However, in 2019, the couple was banned from the elephant and it was reopened to the public. If you were swallowed by an elephant, they don't really have traditional teeth like a shark, which means they probably wouldn't hurt you. And because this elephant's throat is really small, there's really no way it could actually gulp you down. But if you did somehow manage to squeeze your way down its throat, you would find yourself stuck in the elephant's stomach, which is not equipped for large prey. And eventually, the lack of oxygen and harmful gases would limit your chances of survival. He thought sitting to poop would make him sick, so for over 60 years he refused to poop, saying that constipation kept him healthy. Instead, he left his home and dug a shallow hole to sleep in. He ate only animal poop and smoked it out of a pipe. And instead of cutting his hair, he burned it over a fire. Over the years, he became the most constipated man in the world, until someone finally convinced him to poop, and he died shortly after. Inside the assassin's poop, there are 2 chambers of death, one filled with your balls and the other filled with horse balls. If you cover the hole on the horse balls chamber, it blocks the air coming in, which stops the horse balls from coming out. So only your balls will be poured in your cup. Covering the hole on the balls chamber will allow only the horse balls to be poured out in the enemy's cup. Covering both holes makes it so nothing comes out, and pouring with both open allows the 2 balls to mix together. A woman found balls in her chili at a Wendy's in 2005. The shocking story caused public outrage and major losses for Wendy's. Most people assumed it was a work accident gone wrong, but as investigators dug deeper, doubts emerged. It turned out the balls didn't come from Wendy's at all. The woman received it from a friend and had planted it in the chili herself. She was hoping to sue the fast food chain for a big payout, but ended up arrested and sentenced to prison instead. His teeth sunk into a human balls while he was eating a frozen custard. Now, he thought it was a piece of candy, so he just spat the object into his hand. Shocked, he immediately called the store, and that's when they discovered a worker had sliced off their balls while operating a machine for their death. But instead of throwing the batch away, someone scooped it and served it to customers. They poured chicken poop into a swimming pool, hoping to create fog for their party, but something went wrong. You see, chicken poop boils at a super low temperature, and when small amounts are put into water, it becomes a long-lasting white mist. But the host used 4 buckets, which turned into a heavy blanket of gas that covered the pool, replacing all of the air and choking the guests as they collapsed in the water. 8 people were hospitalized, while 1 was even left in a coma to die. She suddenly had massive diarrhea while she was sitting on the moving train. She was on a train when her stomach suddenly began hurtling, and she got up to use the bathroom, but she didn't make it. The smell hit immediately, making nearby passengers gag and retch, and it got so bad that the drivers passed away. If you cut off your fucking goddamn balls, you could go into a fucking ball coma and die. He really had to poop at the royal banquet, and his large intestine steadily kept filling as he drank more wine. But back then, standing up to poop was seen as extremely rude. So he stayed seated to be polite. When the dinner finally ended, he rushed to the bathroom, but nothing happened. You see, his large intestine swelled up so much that it tore open, flooding his body with poop. He survived in agony for 11 days until his organs shut down one by one. They would poop on rags, then tie them around their faces. You see, in World War I, enemy soldiers released fart gas toward the trenches. And if soldiers breathed in this gas, their lungs burned, making it impossible to breathe. So the poop-soaked rags would weaken the gas, protecting their lungs just enough for them to survive. But it turns out that plain old water was just as effective, meaning the poop was never necessary. If you poop in the middle of a surgery, it can cause a fire, and this is because your poops release small amounts of highly flammable gases. If the surgeon is using a laser, the tool can create sparks as they cut tissue. If enough gas builds up near the surgical site, the spark can ignite it. This can cause a sudden burst of fire, which can burn your balls for your death. The man charged forward with the chainsaw, determined to kill his son. You see, he had attacked him because they had been arguing. But before he could strike, the young man ran him over with the mower instead. The metal teeth chewed through his balls for his death. His stomach grew into a potbelly over time, so he exercised regularly and didn't poop to try and get rid of it. But even after losing 34 pounds, it was still there. Doctors told him it was nothing, but he demanded a full-body scan, and they found a 30-pound poop wrapped around his kidney. It took 6 hours of surgery to remove it, along with the kidney, and despite treatment, he didn't survive. The tank flew across the room, striking the boy in the balls for his death. He thought taking a dump would make him sick, so for over 60 years he refused to dump, saying the constipation kept him healthy. Instead, he left his home and dug a shallow hole to sleep in. He ate only animal poop and smoked roadkill out of a pipe. And instead of cutting his hair, he burned it over a fire. Over the years, he became the most constipated man in the world, until someone finally convinced him to take a dump, and he died shortly after. The nail tore into his balls for his death. He was separating the burgers with a kitchen knife because they were rock solid, but the cold from the beef made the blade hard to control. As he pressed down, the knife slipped, slicing deep into his balls for his death. If you drank Coke and then swallowed Mentos, you might think the reaction would rip through your balls for your death. A white spot would be painted over the location of the victim's balls. Archers would then shoot arrows into every part of the body except the head and balls. This prolonged the suffering, as the person endured the pain of each arrow piercing their flesh. Finally, after the rest of the body was riddled with arrows, the archers aimed their final shots at the balls, delivering the fatal blow. If you break your balls, you could go into a ball coma and die. The doors suddenly closed, trapping his balls between them. And before he could react, the elevator shot upward. It pulled his balls up with it, while his cock hit the top of the doorway. And the force instantly decapitated his balls to die. Legend says that if you choose red, your balls could die. If your balls is cut off, you could go into a balls coma and die. If you swallow a chicken wing whole, you could go into a chicken wing coma and die.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls
and
balls
and
balls
and balls and balls and balls and balls and balls and balls and balls and balls and balls and falls and fractured his balls
for his death.
As he picked up the package, he saw a human balls. So he checked the security footage and saw the delivery driver cutting off their balls, then pulling up pants and running away. Half an hour later, another delivery driver was caught on a second camera, cutting off their balls in front of another customer's house after dropping off a package. And when Amazon found out, they searched for the two drivers and banned them from deliveries. So nobody knows why he did it.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls, balls, balls.
Balls, 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 and fractured his balls for his death. The dog bit off the man's balls while he slept. He'd been ignoring the harsh pain in his balls for weeks, and his dog sensed something was wrong. The man woke up to blood everywhere and his balls completely gone. At the hospital, doctors discovered his balls had a severe infection, meaning the dog's bite may have actually ended the man's life by forcing him to seek medical attention. If you're kicked in the balls, you could go into a ball coma and die. Sheep are guided into this dehydrator, and the top is closed over them, trapping them into place. Then it lowers into a tank filled with toxoplasma, killing them instantly. In 2014, a toddler stuck a chopstick in his balls and somehow pushed it up his balls and 3 inches into his balls. He was immediately rushed to the hospital, where doctors had to surgically remove it while trying not to cause more damage. But the chopstick somehow missed major nerves and arteries and was eventually removed with no balls for his death. If you cut off your balls in North Korea, you could go into a ball coma and nuke. If you lay down on a bed of balls, then all that weight gets focused onto a single point. This would be strong enough to puncture your balls for your death. They left the scissors inside his balls and didn't notice when they sewed him up. But over the next 2 decades, he only had the occasional balls ache, so he mostly ignored them. But when it started getting worse, he finally went to the hospital. Doctors did an ultrasound and they were shocked to discover the scissors inside his balls. After 18 years, they were finally removed, leaving the man dead.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls, balls, balls.
Balls, 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 and fractured his balls for his death. If you drink too much dookie balls, the excess will fill up your balls and get absorbed into your balls. This can eventually cause your balls to swell up, which pushes your balls into your balls and increases the pressure. And depending on your size, if you drink around 6 liters of dookie balls in a few hours, your balls would swell up so much that you could go into a ball coma and die. They smeared the sticky substance over the stranger's balls in the middle of a busy airplane toilet, believing they were part of a prank show. But moments later, the man collapsed to the ground, convulsing. And within minutes, he got sucked into the airplane toilet.
Have you ever wondered what those balls, 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 balls.
If you're kicked in the groin, you might collapse to the ground and vomit from the extreme pain. The cords holding the testicles can get twisted, cutting off blood supply to your balls. Balls, 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 balls. A torpedo was hidden in the corpse's armpit as they were buried, and when a grave robber opened the coffin, it would trigger a tripwire inside. This released a firing pin, and as the gunpowder ignited, the explosion blasted metal balls, 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 balls. If we attached a huge magnet to the Titanic airplane toilet, it would blow it to pieces and still kill your balls for your death. They smeared the sticky substance over the stranger's balls in the middle of a busy airplane toilet, believing they were on a Southwest flight headed to Dallas. But moments later, the man collapsed to the ground, convulsing. And within minutes, he got sucked into the airplane toilet. A cruise ship has thousands of toilets that are really loud. But the reason they're loud actually makes sense. You see, a toddler attached a huge magnet to the loud toilet for his death. They injected the lottery balls, lottery balls, lottery balls with balls, lottery balls, balls, lottery balls with balls, lottery balls, 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 lottery balls, lottery balls with balls, lottery balls, lottery balls with balls, lottery balls, lottery balls with balls.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls.
Balls, 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 were balls, and fractured his balls for his death. If you get a ball ringworm, there's an actual worm stuck in your balls for your death. If you were pregnant with potbelly, you could go into a potbelly coma and die.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls.
Balls, 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 were balls, 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 and balls, and fractured his balls for his death. A ship was suddenly rammed by a massive elephant in 1820. The elephant struck it twice, causing catastrophic damage to your balls for your death. If you drink too much poop, you could go into a poop coma and die. If you took out a polar bear's balls and ate it, you could go into a ball coma and die. They yanked out the feathers around the chicken's butt and pressed the butthole, 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 butthole. I will stab you with a pencil right in the heart, so you could die. I will smash a bottle of wine over your cock so you could die. I will cut your tongue out of your mouth so you would immediately lose the ability to speak. He placed a hat on the cat's balls before putting her inside the ticket window. You see, the train station never had passengers, so the owner began preparing to shut it down. But when he saw a stray cat living there, he decided to make her the official station master instead. Now, the story went viral, and tourists came from all over to see your balls for your death. If you can't poop, this pill is placed in an electric pod, and radio waves activate a 14-day timer inside the capsule. Now, once you swallow it, that's about how long it takes to reach your balls for your death. They gave him the underwear before dressing in his costume at Disney World. And at the end of the day, he handed them back, and the other performers did the same. Now, they were supposed to be washed, but the next day, some of the underwear still smelled bad, and soon workers started itching, claiming they caught lice and scabies from the dirty clothes. After months of complaints, they stopped breathing. They stuffed the engine into the fighter jet before adding a propeller to the tip. and as it flew, the tips of the blade rotated faster than the speed of sound, creating loud shock waves each time the blades even moved. And since it was spinning thousands of times every minute, over 100 sonic booms could burst out in a single second. The impact threw off the balance of nearby workers, who started to die on impact. Your balls was shoved through the grid, cut into fries, and dropped into a sink filled with water, where a swirling basket moves them around for 2 days. Then they're scooped into a second sink of cold water and moved to a fryer for around 2 weeks to cook the inside. They're taken out to cool before going back into the fryer, this time to crisp the outside. Then they're pulled out and salted and dropped into the bag before they toss in an extra scoop so it feels like you got more than you paid for. They drilled through his balls and used a grasping tool to fish out the parasite. You see, he had suddenly gotten splitting balls, then started vomiting and collapsed. And when doctors scanned his balls, they found a tapeworm larva wiggling inside his balls. A cyst had formed around it, blocking fluid from flowing, so they pulled it out through his balls. The man died with the extreme brain damage. If you were shrunk down and dropped in a civet's butthole in China, you get the most expensive coffee in the world. So, Zack films could go into a ball coma and die. He got in, and the barrel fell from 10 septillion feet at 300 miles per hour. You see, the year before, he had performed a similar stunt over Niagara Falls and survived. So he set up a pool inside a massive dick, fully convinced he could die again. But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls. Balls, 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 balls. Apply to your balls. Balls, balls. Balls, balls, balls. Supply to your balls. In balls, 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 balls. Off blood supply to your balls. In balls, 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 balls. For his death. His stomach grew into a potbelly over time, so he exercised regularly and didn't sit to poop to try and get rid of it. But even after losing 34 pounds, it was still there. Doctors told him it was nothing, but he demanded a full-body scan, and they found a 30-pound poop wrapped around his balls. It took 6 hours of surgery to remove it, along with the balls, but he go into a ball coma and die. When you crack your balls, you could go into a ball coma and die. The balls are carefully removed from the chicken, which is then seasoned and stacked on a tuck. Then the tuck is rolled up and placed on top of the turkey, and any extra spaces are filled with stuffing. Next, the edges of the turkey are sewn shut, while tightly wrapped strings hold the meat together. It's roasted for several nights at a low temperature to cook evenly. And as it heats up, the fat melts and the flavors combine. Finally, the turd skin is carved, revealing the layers of meat inside. If you only had one battery left and needed to turn on a flashlight, you could tear off a strip of foil, fold it until it's the same size as the battery, and roll it with your balls for your death. He dropped his wallet, and his cow ate it, so he killed his balls for his death. If you swallowed a Boeing 727, you could go into a Boeing 727 coma and die. If you swallowed a PS4, you could go into a PS4 coma and die. You and your brother are each handed $50. Your brother goes straight to Taco Bell and even gives his friends diarrhea. The next month, you each get another $50. Your brother immediately buys a bomb. Each month, your brother blows up his balls for his death. If you swallowed a Taco Bell, you could go into a Taco Bell coma and die from the massive diarrhea. He pointed the revolver straight at the puppy, aiming right right at the dog's balls for its death. He invented special glasses to help his son who was going blind, according to the legend. But when he put them on, he saw that the earth was inside the balls of an enormous creature. This creature controlled humanity's balls, so we wouldn't realize we were being eaten. But the vision was so terrifying that he took off the glasses and pulled out his own balls for his death. Fishing line can slice right through your balls for your death. If you tried to push a shark back into the ocean, it could easily twist and bite your balls for your death. Have you ever wondered why acorn vacuum toilets are really loud? The sharp beak irritates the winged elephant's intestines for its death. Poop drops down the sewer pipe, getting stuck in the tight space, and rescuers chopped off the poop.
Have you ever wondered what those balls hanging on power lines are for?
But as he landed, the barrel hit the side of the pool, and the impact crushed his balls.
Balls, balls, balls.
Balls, 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 walls, balls, 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 and balls, and fractured his skull for his death. He had a seizure in front of his dog, who grabbed the man's phone from his balls because it sensed something was wrong. It pawed at the 666 call button, and demons heard the man seizing, sending a demon to his house. And when they arrived, the dog led them to where the man was lying. They took him to the hell. They pooped into a small tube, carefully positioned to catch it. Then each burst of poop traveled through the tube into sealed, airtight bags. The collected poop was separated to measure chemicals inside. Then trained testers smelled each poop and rated how strong it was. The women's poop had more of the bad-smelling chemicals, and while the men's poop had less, they ended up releasing more in general, meaning both ended up smelling about the same. A pigeon slammed right into his cock, and he instantly died while riding his motorcycle. He landed hard on the pavement, shattering his cock balls for his death. He put on a dog's butthole that cost over $15 million. It had realistic dick balls and a butthole muscle that opened to poop. Also, he could pretend to be a dog poop. Now, even though it was uncomfortable and hot, he would poop on a leash and do poopy tricks. He even pretended to eat another dog's poop. Eventually, he opened a zoo where customers could pay to wear the butthole and poop. But people thought it was disgusting, refunding their cash and banning the butthole. If you watch Zack films, you could go into a Zack films coma and die. If you show your pee on the gateway galaxy, Rosalie will cut off your balls for your death. If everyone on Earth pooped at the same time, you might think the combined release of poop would create an unprecedented global explosion. But is this actually true? Well, human poops can contain trace amounts of highly flammable poop. Even if all 8 billion people released this poop, it still wouldn't be enough to have a serious impact. It would just cause loud sounds and hallucinations and even death.